Hello everyone, this is Karan from CII and we welcome you to the CII SummitFX from 1st to 4th of September. So we are starting with the plenary session 9B XR Emerging Technologies AR VR. We have following speakers with us, Mr. Arvind Neelakantan, the head of Unity Evangelism in India, Mr. Chaitanya Chinchlikar, Vice President Whistling Woods, Mr. TC Indraneel Guha, head of Studio The Mill Bangalore, Mr. Suhas Pingat, Field Marketing Manager, Precision Workstations, Dell Technology, and Mr. Plenary from Technical. Welcome all. You can have the sound. I request Mr. Arvind to continue the discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me just share my screen. All right, so thank you for joining this session, and thank you CII for organizing this event. Hope everyone and your loved ones are safe. My name is Arvind Neelakantan. I'm the head of technology for Unity India, and I specialize in film and animation. I'm moderating today's panel on the future of XR, specifically on film and animation. And joining me on this panel today are three people who I would say have front row seats when it comes to the future of filmmaking and the technologies behind it. So welcome everyone. So let me do a little bit of introduction really fast. I would like to first start by introducing the Vice President of Whistling Woods International, my good friend Chaitanya Chinchlikar. He has a multifaceted 2-decade career spanning the film and creative arts industry. And over the past decade and a half, he has been instrumental in mainstreaming film and creative arts education in India. He has also been evangelizing for the use of multiple new and emerging technologies, not only at Whistling Woods, but to the entire film communication and creative industry at large. By the way, he's also a very technical guy. So obviously he also serves as a CTO or Chief Technology Officer for Whistling Woods and heads the emerging media department. Next up, we have the head of studio at the Mill in Bangalore, Mr. Indraneel Guha. For folks who don't know about the Mill, very strange. But if you don't know, it is a global creative partner for agencies, production companies, and brands. And they work across multiple media channels and platforms. And Indraneel has over 25 years of experience where he has played critical roles in setting up business operations and client relationship management in VFX animation and advertising business. Finally, you can talk all you want about XR, but without a headset, there's not a lot of things you can actually get going. So that's precisely why we have Mr. Suhas Pingat. Suhas is the Precision Field Marketing Manager at Dell. Now, Precision is, of course, Dell's workstation range, and he has about 20 years of experience in the IT industry, in sales, business development, and product management. So thank you all for being on the panel today. Let me start by setting some context about this panel discussion. So I'll just take maybe the next 5 minutes to set the context. So we all know that the landscape is rapidly making audiences more sophisticated because the way in which media is consumed is changing. And opportunities in film and animation are growing pretty much every year, and there's a number of factors behind it. There is increasing in broadcast hours by cable and satellite television. There is obviously a growing popularity of streaming video, especially during these pandemic times. I think everyone has a subscription to every OTT that's available out there. And finally, there's newer and newer mediums of consuming content, in which definitely includes VR and AR. And in India itself, indigenous hardware like GeoGlass, Ajna Lens, Imaginate are creating a lot of buzz right now. And it looks like it's becoming more and more affordable to get an XR headset or an XR device in India. We of course have Suhas from Dell on the panel too, who I'm sure if you ask nicely, he'll give you some tips on how to get those XR devices. And because of this, we all know the landscape is rapidly making our audiences more sophisticated. It's raising the expectation, and which has of course made filmmaking kind of cost prohibitive. And creators need now more than ever the absolute ability to create not just faster and cheaper, but also newer and better. There's also a demand to future-proof your IP. If the landscape, let's say, changes tomorrow and a new device enters the market, you might need to start over again if you want to publish there. It means your IP is not safe, and it also has the possibility of decreasing your audiences. So your lifespan of your entire story also becomes shorter. So with that said, let me just show you some examples of content that uses AR and VR specifically to drive storytelling. So first up is Aardman Animation, which just announced an AR experience that is coming up called the Big Fix Up. And you'll be able to bring Wallace and Gromit, very famous characters from Aardman, right into your life, and you can help them solve a mystery for them.
Employee of Spanners. What?
I think I should just stop sharing just a bit and make sure that I have.
Wallace and Gromit's brand new company. You interact with them every day if you want to, while you're taking part, doing a job for Wallace or helping Gromit out.
The Big Fix Up is different to anything I've ever worked on before. Using an app to look at the real world and see AR elements come into life was just completely new to me, really exciting.
You get the opportunity to place your contraptions and machines that you make actually in the world using augmented reality.
The established characters of Wallace and Gromit and our new characters of Bernard Grubb and Lily Hackaby have all gone through the same evolution. Essentially, we made master sculpts with a one-colour clay so that they had all the correct proportions and texture. We then scanned using the latest 3D scanning technology, so we had a complete 360 digital representation of Wallace and Gromit.
It's not a sit-back experience. It's playful and exciting and engaging and funny. Wallace is an inventor, he loves technology, and he would embrace this wholeheartedly and give it a big thumbs up.
Cool. I think I actually had a chance to take a look at the app. It's pretty awesome. When you look at VR, an example for VR, we have the winner of 2019 Cannes Lions Grand Prix for digital craft. Now, this is the VR music experience featuring Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan, and it used Tilt Brush for all the animation in this endlessly expanding lake where Corgan plays, and it was created by the VR artist Danny Bittman. Let me just play that.
Down the middle, the world survives. Look outside, the air's alive. Call it, eat the elemental dark nights, this mountain stone. Come on.
And finally, this is the biggest trend these days. You probably have heard of virtual production, where you put real time, which is a game engine, behind the screen of an actor or in the back of the set. And within virtual production, you have various phases starting from location scouting, shot planning, pre-visualization and production design, character animation, mocap, simulcam, LED screens, and even rendering out the final pixel from the engine itself. And every one of them uses some kind of XR technology. So this is an example from Lion King, just a 30-second clip.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I chased him down.
7's up.
You know what's great about it is that every shot is different, but it is still really good.
VR is actually giving us the experience of being in the set. So basically you put on VR, you go to Africa, you're in Africa, and you're on the plains of Africa, and you have animated characters that walk through there, and the way you would on a regular movie.
All right. So with that context set, before I get to the questions, Indraneel, I believe that you have a video that you wanted to show, right? Do you want to show it right now? You muted? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you want to show it?
I will do that.
Yeah,
Should I just share my screen?
Yeah, just stop sharing.
Okay. So the mill, just a quick preface to this, the reel that we have on Experience. Basically, we've been very advanced in terms of building our own tools for virtual production, as well as experience tools both for social AR apps, as well as creating scouting apps. So this reel basically walks you through some of those aspects of it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's about it. I'll stop sharing. Back to you, Arvind.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much. So I think that kind of gives the context of what is possible with XR and where the future is. Because there's been a lot of discussion about how that can be used globally, but let's kind of focus to India, right? Start off with virtual reality to begin with. And this is a question I'm just opening up for all the folks in the panel, which is from a purely Indian context. From your experience, what is the level of interest you see in using virtual reality specifically during filmmaking? If there is an interest, where do you see it being used? So let's start off with maybe Indraneel, because you just showed this awesome video. So you get first dibs if you want to go.
So I'll be honest with you. I think the Indian film business is still not there the way it goes. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I think. So anyway, I'm not using that of the Indian tools in film. There is a lot of to do that. And especially trying to improve the pre-visualization part of the filmmaking process. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have positive news to give you on this call because what I've seen is we are still regional. But I keep encouraging people to keep looking at the previs. And if there's any interest that any of the producers want to show that. Can you hear me? Arvind?
Too much feedback actually.
Yeah, I don't know where it is coming from. Arvind, there's a lot of coming in. Is this better now?
Yeah, I think when the screen share is on, there is feedback. Now it's not happening.
All right. Yeah, like I was saying, is that there is a lot of potential to get into the pre-visualization part of the process and trying to use a lot of the CT assets that go into production from a kind of a lossless production point of view. But purely from a filmmaking process, India is to still adopt to that technology completely. But frankly speaking, there has been a lot of interest outside the filmmaking business, of course, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that, including taking to go-to-market products, which I have been involved in the past. But unfortunately, that's not the kind of level of interest that's been in the filmmaking business. So those are my 2 cents into it. If any, I don't know if others have better knowledge about it, but I think that's where I'm coming from.
I do have a follow-up question, but I'll let Chaitanya, maybe you can give your thoughts on it.
So just to kind of give you a broad sense of where are we right now and where are we likely to go, I have like 3 or 4 slides. So if I could just talk over them,
yeah,
so it's
sure.
easier. So, you know, what I want to start about is essentially where are we? And in order to talk about it, I want to just show you a curve. Now, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's essentially a psychology curve. It maps knowledge, skills, and confidence on 2 axes. So around 2015 is when cinematic VR started globally, 14, 15. And, you know, we were here then, we didn't know anything. And then there was a little bit of knowledge, skills, and suddenly the confidence shot through the roof and everybody was standing on top of Mount Stupid. Then we learned a little bit more and then we realized that we know nothing. So we crashed into the valley of despair and wisdom has started to set in the last couple of years. And this is where we are. So this is where the world is when it comes to cinematic VR content. So if you look at key learnings along the way, there is no such thing as a VR expert at this point of time. There are only 5 rules as of now in cinematic VR. So don't bore people, don't confuse people, don't give people whiplash, don't make people vomit, and back up your data. So other than this, everything is trial and error, everything is being experimented upon, everything are areas that people are trying something out to see whether it works. A lot of people are trying it, are going down the technology route, are going down the functional VR route. A lot of them are going down the narrative VR route, which are essentially trying to create original content creation paradigms for what is essentially a new content creation platform, right? And so if you had to look at what are the 2 kinds of, when you say where VR is in India, there's functional VR and there's narrative VR. Functional VR, some of it has been around for decades, whether it's simulations or whether it's remote access, but usage of VR in mental health, education, gaming, marketing, these have been around, these 2 have been around for a while. These are relatively new, but these are essentially about doing traditional functions using VR as a technology tool or the technology pipeline. What is really keen for us and what's the new thing is, in these 2 areas, so cinematic VR and live VR, how do you create original content? How do you create a content creation paradigm for this new platform that has come our way, right? Also, the same content creation mechanisms will also be used for creating unique content to take care of mental health, education, gaming, and marketing. So while the existing methodologies are being deployed on the new VR kind of the workflow here, you are also going to start to see a lot more original content get created for the VR platform. Now, when I say for the VR platform, what does it mean? So essentially, if you look at it, our content is split in 4 platforms. So earlier it was 3, now it's 4. So we have film, TV, OTT, and VR. And the nature of viewing defines the USP of the content. So film is captive community viewing, TV is non-captive family viewing, digital is non-captive individual viewing, and VR is captive individual viewing. So essentially what this allows us to do, or what this means, is that your filmed entertainment, theatrical content is a larger-than-life audiovisual narrative spectacle. TV allows for appointment viewing, story and character development, because it's essentially a long-form, long-term, endless medium. You can keep churning out stories week after week after week, or day after day, right? Digital OTT is the first time where content viewing got individual, which is why it became writing focused, high concept, less formulaic. The individual viewer is not being judged for what content he or she is seeing. Similarly, in VR, now we have an addition of it being immersive, interactive, and captive, and individual. So it has the deepest impact. It taps into an incredible sense of immersion, and it is immersive and interactive. So under this paradigm, what is your content creation going to be? What are these three? What is this going to be, right? And this is the question that we have been trying to answer at the VR lab that we started, which is essentially to create the first generation of cinematic VR filmmakers. Actually, this is on the business side, so I'm going to skip this. So if you look at it, what is the way forward for cinematic VR? So where we are right now versus where we are likely to be, say, in 2024. So widespread fiction narrative content will emerge. Two generations of cinematic VR content creators will have emerged, first by 21 and then the next by 24. You will have increased festival inclusion, dedicated VR film festivals, and your tech pipeline will get sorted. Now, the reason why I have put these two boxes next to each other, because this is the journey of digital OTT content from 2013 to 2020. And it's amazing to see how similar this will be. So 2013, where digital or OTT content was, VR content is that today. And the path that it did in the last 7 years is what VR content will do in the next 4 or 5 years. So, with smartphones, OLED displays, 4G, I think my internet connection is unstable. So with smartphones, high quality 4G, with good viewing devices, with high quality content, what happened with digital OTT in these 7 years is what will happen with cinematic VR. So that's, I think, where we are and where we are likely to go with cinematic VR. So I'm actually quite bullish on it. And you kind of mentioned the indigenous device, which is the Geo Glass. So I think it will play the role what the Geophone played when it was introduced for the first time. Even if that particular piece or that particular version does not break all the boundaries, what it will do is it will crack the ceiling. It will take cinematic VR, it will take VR down to, it will take it out of the four-wheeler SUV socioeconomic class A plus down to the train traveler, bus traveler. It's going to take it down to that. It will not be too many months away that you will have people who are sitting, 4 in a row in a local train in Mumbai. Each of them has a VR headset on their head and they're consuming content. It's not more than a few months away, in my opinion.
So I think it's like two diagonals, right? Indraneel is very, very bearish, and then Chaitanya, it's awesome to hear the vision.
I'm not bearish. I'm saying that it has potential. But your question was very pointed in saying that how is it being used in Indian filmmaking, where there's ways to go of adopting technology in the production process. Because you've got to understand one thing, the way we in the mill use the technology is very far-reaching in the sense that we are partnered with Epic. Epic recently partnered even for the Mandalorian project with ILM. I think that level of engagement has still not reached our shores in terms of adopting the technology into filmmaking. Now, the basics of actually doing basic virtual reality scouting has even not started. We still use traditional method of scouting. Using CG characters and set, how we reviewing scale to proportion using the VR scouting tools. How are we really pre-visualizing our shots using VR scouting tools, and the virtual production setup is still ways to go. I agree with Chaitanya's optimism that it is available, but ultimately it's going to be the content creation, which is going to make or break this process. The technology is available. Undoubtedly the technology. And for that reason, there needs to also embed a process of creating proprietariness in the way you adopt the technology. Like at the mill, we are constantly at the front end of creating proprietary tools constantly, because we are, technology agnostic, right? So, and you have to be, because you're using game engines for rendering tools, you're using different platforms for developing the apps, so you have to constantly innovate in adapting to these various structures. And it's a very vast subject, Arvind. I think this 1 hour is too short to even scratch the surface of this conversation. But I'm optimistic that, Indian filmmakers will start seeing the value of using these tools. And once they get used to these tools, they'll see how efficient it makes post-production, because there'll be no post. The post will be on the set, and they will see a lot of their final outputs happening on set. And as a result, that transition will happen. For example, even mocap is not made as much to our shores yet. If you're talking purely from an Indian filmmaking perspective, yes, a lot of filmmakers have gone abroad, like Ravan was an example where they used extensive high quality mocap to do virtual productions, but that's been a limited experience, but I think it has large potential.
So yeah, just on that, I think there's two separate things. One is cinematic VR when it comes to content for the fourth content viewing platform that will emerge.
Yeah.
And the other thing is virtual production. Virtual production will be used in film, television, digital, everything. So one is a technology pipeline. The other is actually a type of content.
Yeah.
Right? Just like television content is separate from film content, and OTT content is separate from both television and film content, you will have an original content source which will emerge for cinematic VR.
Absolutely.
Both in the live format and in the recorded format.
I think that kind of segues into my next question, but with kind of what a lot of points that Indraneel was talking about, where virtual production or VR has not really reached the Indian shores yet. But before I get there, I want to get Suhas's point. From hardware, from a market demand point of view, is there a demand for VR? Do you see that? Do you see VR content being in demand for consumption by the Indian folks and by Indian filmmakers?
Thanks. I agree very much with
Well, cannot hear you, Suhas.
Am I audible?
It's very there's a lot of disturbance. Maybe guys.
Okay. So
it's sort of loud. I think there's a little feedback from your audio. I don't know what's going on.
No, nothing is.
I'll call back.
I think Suhas is telling he'll call back.
He'll come back. Right, no problem. While I think
just wanted to add a little bit on the entire application of the content creation mechanism, right? I mean, it's a crude way to put it, but essentially that is what it is, right? You are essentially allowing filmmakers to create content in a different manner for a different platform for a different kind of consumption methodology. How that content itself will be different, that is a factor of how well you are able to wrap your head around the technology of the time, which is exactly how content evolved. So films are being made in the 1880s. The first television channel launched in some 1920 or 1940 or something like that. So for 60 years, the only content format known to man or humankind was long format fiction narrative or non-fiction narrative. When television came around, you didn't see the same thing being replicated on TV.
Right.
Because it is a different content consumption platform, a new content type emerged. Same thing with OTT, both for fiction and non-fiction. Similarly, a content type will emerge for cinematic VR, which already has started to emerge. So you know, if you see some of the content that Felix and Paul make, if you see some of the content that, well, I don't want to brag, but some of the content that we've made at the VR lab, whether it's the thriller fiction shorts that we've made, or whether it is the Kumbh Mela that we've shot in cinematic VR, which, you know, kind of takes people right down to the right ghat at the right time for the right Shahi Snan, because not obviously everybody can't be there at that particular point in time. So if these things, once you teach people how to produce for VR, is when you will start to see meaningful content.
Chaitanya, I think what we are doing is there is a kind of segues into a lot of things that I want to be asking about. So let me kind of structure this in a way that so it's contextual what I had asked for earlier. So you know, you mentioned about Kumbh Mela, you mentioned about teaching teachers and faculty. I'll get to that for sure, I promise. So at this point of time, to ask the question, kind of the second question, kind of to Indraneel, would be that virtual production and virtual reality is of course not being used at the mill, or I don't think even from my experience, not a lot of people in India are using it. So what would you like to see being added to the current set of virtual production tools? Virtual production really lacks in terms of practicality.
I missed some portion of what you asked. If you can just repeat what you.
No, it's just like, so what would you like to see being added to the current set of virtual production tools?
Yeah.
And which area do you think virtual production lacks in terms of practicality?
Yeah, so frankly, the mill as such, meaning the Bangalore part, is fairly integrated with the mill global, except that we don't do production here. I mean, I'm talking about you know, shoots, and a large portion of the mill's advantage of using virtual production tools have been already felt in the way it produces its advertising commercials, and because we use a lot of CG assets, and we are trying to get to a point where we create lossless production pipelines. So it's more from a point of view of how interactive that content can be further made, because once you go into the virtual world and an you know, immersive experience, you want interactivity in the content. For example, we did so I don't want to get into examples, but yes, if you're asking me what more would I like to see, I think it's very important that people start dabbling with that in terms of using it practically in their production, because it starts from previous. It starts from the idea. Sorry?
Why are there people not dabbling at it right now?
They aren't, because I think there is a lack of understanding as to how it brings advantage into creating post in set itself. I think it also is about how we are set up in production. Even for example, if you see using mocap, how is the mocap gear quite available, a full mocap suit on set? And how practical is it to get that? And how many production companies can actually bring that to bear on a production? I think that's where the question is. And once that gets addressed, I think it will become very endearing for most of these production houses to see the advantage of it. Because what you're doing is you're actually preparing a lot of the post in conjunction with what you're going to shoot. For example, when you're trying to do what Mill has its own proprietary tool that's called Mill Cyclops, what we do is that if you have you can see how we embed live action or mocap into virtual sets, you know, and that seamlessness gives a lot of advantage for directors to take calls on sets. You are seeing already what's happening, and I think a lot of what is happening in India is a lot of the visualization on set is very much what do you call a trial and error method. And that's why the post becomes so elongated, whereas they can address a lot of them in set and make the post more valuable. Having said that, it's not that all these tools on game engines have able to achieve the kind of render quality that we need. We are still dependent on tools like Houdini and Arnold to really achieve the end result. But the day the compositor says to us, you know, I really love the output from that game engine render, meaning that's it, you've made it. Because then you have a lossless pipeline where you can actually seamlessly move a lot of those outputs from set straight away. And
So
yeah,
you, you mentioned something about lack of understanding because folks just don't get it. And Chaitanya,
it's not
you are
get it. I think there's a lot of advantage that they don't understand what it means. I'm sorry, because of experience and nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Chaitanya, you are an educational institute. So how do you, and you are constant in your own words, you are an evangelist when it comes to adopting of new technologies. So how do you get people, especially students and faculty, to get this kind of or to bridge this gap of understanding how this tech could be used in production, not only in an educational environment? So how do you do that? You're muted.
When we do look at introducing any new workflow or any new tech pipeline into the learning of the students, we are doing it. So it's purely application based, right? Which is essentially you need to be able to, when you walk out of Western Woods, you need to be able to deploy it in the industry and work with other units and help them kind of put it together. So whether it is digital cinematography or 4K, 60, 8K, or mobile filmmaking, for each of these tools pipelines, that's how we've approached it. Exactly the same thing for cinematic VR. So essentially, what we've done is we have a curriculum ready now, which is part of our filmmaking program. So every single student who graduates from 2021 onwards will be ready for cinematic VR. So they will not only know how to create content for film, television, and OTT, but they will also know how to create both fiction and non-fiction content for VR, right? The next thing that we're looking at doing is virtual production. So we're looking at building in both a Unity-based as well as a Unreal-based workflow for virtual production, right? Which includes, like, for example, Unity, you're well aware, Anirudh has come with the Digital Monarch Media rig and with exposure and Cyclops and that entire ecosystem. How do we create a production pipeline, a production toolkit for DOPs, directors, producers, VFX artists to actually know how to do virtual production? Same thing for once it is part of the curriculum, everybody does it by default.
So with that, how do you bridge the gap? Because when Indraneel was talking about, like, hey, if I want to get an entire mocap set on the production set, does it even work? Is it something that's even, I would say, affordable for that production? And I just want to direct that to Suhas, which is because he comes from Dell and because he deals with the hardware part of it. How do you can this model that Chaitanya has be replicated in the production environment through or rather, let me ask a question, which is, how do you bridge the hardware requirement or the affordability of those in a production environment? You're muted.
I hope I'm audible now.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I don't know, some network issues, was working very fine the entire day. Okay, this is a great panel, good information or flow. I'll answer this question first. Is technology ready to take it ahead? See, first of all, looking at the traditional space where you have animation, VFX and all that is all done and dusted. It's already there. Okay, so only thing what happens is, instead of creating it, let's say in 20 seconds, now you're creating it 5 seconds. Okay, the speed has gone up tremendously. Now, there are various aspects to it. Technology has changed rapidly in the last, let's say, not even a decade, the last 5 years or so. Now, are we ready from a hardware perspective to get it as good as possible, to have the greatest and the best videos and visual effects, if I had to put it this way, whether it is 4K, 5K or 8K, whichever format it is ready. That's not the point. What is essentially going to change is the way we would like to collaborate. Okay. When I say that way, that is the aspect when you talk about virtual reality in production. See, coming back to your earlier question, the need for content is always there. Okay, the content could be traditional, the content could be VR enabled, the content could be gaming, it could be using AR technologies, mixed reality, and God knows what all. So that will remain. That's not the problem. The problem here is how do you get it as soon as possible, how quickly as possible, and at the best levels of the final cut. Okay, that is why many a times we keep talking about what's happening with Lion King and maybe a Spider-Man and stuff like that. Content will not be an issue, delivering it will not be an issue. How do you collaborate? Because things have changed drastically now. We are not going to have the normal as we had, let's say, about pre-March, if I have to say. And now what is going to change is how do you want to collaborate with different teams? Okay, that's something which is very critical. The second aspect is the more technology we consume, the more democratized it gets. Okay, Chaitanya definitely talked about the consumption side of the business, because you're going to have 5G platforms, you're going to have consumption on mobile, iPads, or any other devices. It could be on a notebook. It's not traditional anymore. The largest consumption, of course, is going to be on the mobile phone, right? So with 5G kicking in, consumption is not going to be a problem. People are hungry. If you get me a T20 match in a VR mode, I would more than be happy to even consume it for 10, 15 minutes, right? So I see a lot of future in that. From a technology standpoint, we are ready. We would like to see how organizations in India can effectively collaborate. That's one thing. Second is data is huge. Okay, it's just tons of data. And whether you store it on the cloud, whether you store it locally in your studios, that's something which we need to watch out for. And third, but not the least, it's important, I think, the security of the entire work that you're doing right now. You create a best of the best stuff, suddenly at the end of the day, it releases somewhere outside, right? We don't want all that. I think these are the few things that are changing, and the way we're going to work together is very critical. Virtual reality, I for sure would like to see it, but right now, from an industry standpoint of view, I can tell you one thing: its consumption is more, let's in the traditional fields of manufacturing, where people like to visualize a car and so on and so forth, not to go into a showroom. It's definitely moving leaps and bounds in education, for that matter. It's moving very, very highly in the medical field as well. Consumption is there as far as our media industry is concerned. Obviously, content is the king. But at the end of the day, delivering that content in a very good and an efficient manner is something which you need to watch out for. And that's where we can. Technology is there too.
That's actually excellent, Suhas. I think you made some really good points about collaboration, security, and people being hungry about this technology itself, which is because kind of segues into my next question amazingly well, which is so going back to Chaitanya, which is you have all of this technology, awesome. Everyone is excited. Hey, yeah, we are in virtual production. Yeah, awesome. But how do you then? But it's brand new, right? There are still the capabilities that don't exist. Like 5G, everyone is talking about it, but we don't have it yet. Everyone is talking about cheap XR or cheap VR headsets. We don't have it yet. And I'm sure Indraneel is also, just waiting for the aha moment where hey, yeah, everyone is starting to use virtual production or virtual reality or any XR headset. So how do you teach your students and your faculty? And I think it can be an advice for not just students, but also for production houses to ramp up the capabilities and to be ready for this when this technology hits or when you can start making this mainstream. What are some of the tips that you can give to the students and to the industry folks?
Absolutely. So, I mean, honestly, how we are doing it on campus is actually, I think we ended up being able to do what we did primarily because we didn't really see it as this big mountain standing in front of us. So we essentially treated it like the core hypothesis is that human beings are natural storytellers. If we are able to wrap our head around the technology of the time, so whether it's a piece of charcoal which you sharpen to draw things on a cave wall, or it's a complex 360 camera and a VR production pipeline, if you're able to wrap your head around the technology of the time, you can tell a story. And if you can tell a story, you can reverse engineer that into creating some kind of framework which you can teach people on how to tell the story, right? That framework is nothing but a curriculum. Because our industry is an applied arts, applied craft industry, once you are able to spend that time at the lab and do all those errors and make all those mistakes while creating cinematic VR content, both live fiction as well as non-fiction, we were able to distill out best practices from it and create a curriculum. Once that curriculum was ready, then we applied it to actually make content and then showed it to a bunch of people. Once that kind of got down to a decent state, where at least your cinematic grammar for VR, your foundations were in place, that is when we plugged it into the curriculum. Not just for existing students, but we're also conducting workshops for industry professionals. So for example, we reached out to production houses and production units who we work with pretty closely, and they've come in and done week-long sessions on cinematic VR. Now, for example, it's the first one that happened was with Friday Filmworks and Neeraj Pandey, where his entire unit, so Neeraj, Sudhir Palsane, who's his DOP, his production, his audiographer, his production designer, his marketing person, his co-producer, everybody came in and spent 4 days and 9-10 hours a day. So it's not that difficult for somebody like a Neeraj Pandey, who's been in the industry for so long, to wrap his head around this new workflow pipeline. And it was very odd because we had 22-year-old, 23-year-old kids teaching all these, Diggaj filmmakers. But it essentially was about opening that, about lighting that bulb in those filmmakers' minds. And when it happened, you could actually see the penny drop. When he got it, immediately you could see their method of writing change, their method of shot taking change, their method of shooting change. They changed their perspective from framing and composition to directing attention, because there is no frame. It's a frameless medium, right? So these are the kind of changes that you have to make in more and more and more content creators. Once that happens, now you have a whole generation of cinematic VR.
So Indraneel, is it what Chaitanya is saying? Is it resonating? Does it make sense? It's just the way that we should be approaching the adoption of storytelling, I would say, and the use of these new tools in the production house.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it brings a lot of advantages. See, today visual effects is part and parcel of any filmmaking process. It's a given. If you see the transition of even filmmaking, who thought that visual effects will become such a large part of filmmaking today? The green screen is the norm, and shooting with mocap has also become a norm. At one time, it was considered a very elitist process of getting to a certain level of CGI into filmmaking. But I think that it's a need for awareness as to, and there is a requirement for development in all this, because everything that is off the shelf is not necessarily that will address all the challenges that you have on your creative requirement. So you will have to adapt, and you'll have to develop, you'll have to have that open mind in terms of adopting these technologies on set and using, like Chaitanya correctly says, it's a different medium, and you've got to adapt it. And I think, and they'll see a lot of advantage in it, because they'll save a lot of time. They'll save a lot of time. Sorry?
I understand that, yet people have to
is
be
it
open
happening?
about. Yeah, is it happening? Is my question.
No, it's not happening. It's not happening to the level that that can be translated into, for us to today discuss on this forum and say virtual production is here and arrived.
So from an OEM point of view, Suhas, this is a question for you possibly, which is, how do you, because, at the end of the day, we need to have as many headsets as possible, as many people handling these tools. What are some of the techniques, or what are some of the steps that you are taking, or you are seeing being taken from an OEM point of view to educate people about VR and virtual production and whatnot?
Okay, so from our standpoint, the solution piece, I would rather call it a solution, because VR is not something that you can come to us and say, okay, here's your VR solution, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There are multiple components to it. At the face of it, yes, it seems to be one single seamless experience for the consumer. But for somebody who wants to develop content, there are various building blocks. Now, I'll try to make it as brief as possible, considering that we have a very limited time. One is, of course, the hardware on which you're going to create the content, right? You're going to obviously have various set of tools. You're going to obviously have Unity here in this case. A lot of stuff is going to be there. You're going to have the graphics component, the processing, because it purely depends on how immersive you want the content to be, right? So that's one aspect. Second is the way you're going to be consuming it is going to be HMD here. The traditional way was using tripods, were using multiple connections and all that. So with the new technology that has come in with one of the leading graphics industry, you just need a single connector to connect the HMD and you start working, right? So that's one aspect. The second aspect, to collaborate with a lot of people here. Now, Dell as an organization is not into content development. Let's be very clear. Okay, so we need to participate, and that's where we collaborate globally. And of course, as far as India is concerned, we also do that. So we have system integrators, we have partners who go ahead and do that work for us. To put that slightly ahead, we've also come up with a center of excellence, which is there in Bangalore. Unfortunately, because it's COVID times, we cannot have it up and running, but it is already set up for customers and for people who are very keen to utilize their data sets, come and test it. So that is one aspect that we are doing, so that you can actually go ahead, test it out, and then probably take it out in a slightly high production environment. So that is what it is. With Dell, what happens is that you come to us and you will get a solution base where we stitch it up together, because now you've got the OS operating system level, you've got the graphics, you've got, of course, the software and the hardware device. So all put together, we go back to the customer, and then the content is created, and then of course it is consumed. So that's the advantage, because we will stitch up the entire requirement for our customers together.
That's excellent. I think that's
Arvind, if you permit me, we are available here and right now to bring all this into town. So we are happy to, any producer on today's chat, or any production house on today's chat, we are here. We can bring that technology to bear as of tomorrow, and happy to share any additional information that's needed to make VR production successful. So it's here. We are here. So please use us and use Chaitanya for.
Yeah. In fact, just last week, somebody who we work with very closely for drones and that kind of stuff to teach. I just went down to his place, and he has a virtual production set up there, which we are now replicating on campus. And while we were doing that is when I thought of something which was an answer to one of the questions you had asked, is what is the big thing that is missing from virtual production? I think in one line, it is a plug and play hardware-based motion tracking solution.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist right now because everybody has their own protocol and is talking in their own language with with any platform, right? So if there is a standardized plug and play motion tracking piece of tech, right? That is something I think virtual production is lacking significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So just like we've, I don't like to use the word uniform, but yeah, just like we have made DCP the uniform broadcast standard, or MPEG, or these things have become standards now. You don't have a standard for motion tracking data.
Right, you're right, Chaitanya, because lossless production is a pipeline, and still we are working on. Having said that, tools have to be developed. That's what I said. You'll have to have an open mind in developing tools to adapt to what your creative needs are, and that development process goes hand in hand with this virtual production. So
I agree, but motion tracking data is too generic for it to have 15 different methods, right?
Yeah.
15 different.
Everybody has their proprietary tools today.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Because we're running out of time, I'm just going to give you 1 minute, because you mentioned something very interesting, which is, hey, producers and directors, the mill is open, right? We have virtual production. And because we're running out of time, I'm going to give you only 1 minute, which is, how did you ramp up capabilities within mill for virtual production? Because Chaitanya talked about methods of where he was defining cinematic grammar and cinematic VR grammar, but within mill, how did you do that?
See, mill has a very long history with virtual production, because we started way back with our proprietary tool called Blackbird, and as a result of that, there's been a long progression in the way we have adopted that technology into our production pipelines today. So I think the question to be really asked is how we effectively using virtual production rather than saying ramping up. I think today the technology is here to stay. Satya, Suhas and Chaitanya have correctly pointed out, it's all there. The question is adapting it. And we have adapted it very well, whether it is whether it is mediums for a large scale outdoors, or whether it is mediums for social apps, or whether it's mediums for cinematic virtual production or interactivity. It's all there today. It's about us adopting it, as simple as that. When I say that, when you say that if you have to ramp up, there's nothing to ramp up here. It's all there.
Hello.
So the adoption is more from the production houses coming in and saying,
they have not seen the advantages of it yet, the way we see it. We just produced ad commercials, which we turn around in 4 weeks. If you see the nature of the ad that we're doing, if I ask any Indian production house to look at it, it's not a 4-week production, So we have been able to crunch time. We have able to increase quality offerings, and we have gotten to a side, a platform of capability, which actually distinguishes us qualitatively and capability-wise.
Chaitanya, you have something?
Hello.
I have
come in?
one word.
Ms. Arvind,
Right?
come in for a minute.
One way to scale up, the easiest thing to scale up is more education, more training.
So I think we are running out of time. We have 4 more minutes before we conclude.
Mr. Arvind, can I come in for a minute, please? We have a presentation by Mr. Suhas Pingat on Dell technologies, so we need to carry on with that also. So the session will carry on for 20 more minutes with the presentation with Mr. Pingat.
We don't believe that there is a presentation. Suhas, is there a presentation?
It's after the panel, after the discussion. So myself and we do have a colleague from Technicolor who's going to be presenting. So it's after.
Okay, so I was under the understanding that there was not.
It's after the session. That's what. So we need to wind up. That's what he's mentioned.
It's after the discussion.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
Arvind, I just, if I may, I just want to play back like a couple of shots of the Kumbh stuff that we shot, just to kind of give people an idea as to what you can do with cinematic VR, especially when you're trying to capture these massive landscapes.
So we have 3 more minutes, so I want to have at least 2 minutes to conclude. So Chaitanya, go ahead.
Done. So I'm going to just play it for a minute or so at max.
Arvind, no questions from the attendees?
I don't see any attendees. I think it's all being live streamed. I don't think it's interactive.
If you can see this.
Ah, nice.
So essentially, this is 360, right? So this is Prayagraj.
Very nice.
I'm going to reduce the volume and talk over it, just to give you a sense of why is this not playing.
का अस्तित्व 3000 वर्ष पुराना है, किंतु इतिहास में इसका पहला उल्लेख 7वीं शताब्दी में चीन देश से आए यात्री और अध्येता हुएनसांग ने किया है.
Show you, yeah. So you can bring in 2D flat content into the cinematic VR thing, which gives a good idea as to how do you. This is the night.
मेला जाना जाता है.
Famous night.
यहाँ के साधुओं और महंतों की वजह से जो दूर दूर के जंगलों, पर्वतों और गुफाओं से आते हैं.
Being able to interview Nara sadhus, being able to sit in front of him inside the akhada and have a conversation. These are absolutely unique things. Now this is just an 8-minute. This is just an 8-minute segment that we have, but I have about 20 hours of the Kumbh.
I think you should post it on if it's publicly available, you should definitely post it on.
Yeah, right now it's an unlisted link. It just got done like 3 days ago. So yeah, because we're essentially, of all the content we shot, then we came back and figured out how are we going to structure this, because this is a behemoth, right? And now we are starting to. So what we're also doing is we've got all this raw footage. We're giving it to students as part of their learning and say, you know what, take this bit, cut it into something nice. So we've interviewed different people. We've interviewed the Akhada people. So there is a Kinnar Akhada, which is for transvestites and, that bit, or I don't know, third sex, whatever you want to call that. Then we've interviewed the army unit that is deployed there to protect the Kumbh. So there is one which is a journey through the eyes of the cook of the army unit. So if I give,
sorry, I'm just a little conscious on the time. But I think it's super interesting what you have done, Chaitanya. I think you should have a separate session on that, because I think so. When I was trying to take notes, what is it? How can VR? What is the future of XR? That's what we are discussing today. And Chaitanya, you got a very good point when you're discussing about the Kumbh, which is at Whistling Woods. You are striving to define the grammar of what it means to create cinematic VR, trying to define the grammar of what it means to use VR or any kind of technology in virtual production, and you have that kind of the concentrated juice of that you can give to everyone because you're already doing that. And from this point of view, you already have a solution. When I mentioned XR or VR, Suhas, you were right on the point where you said, like, hey, don't call it XR or VR, it's just a tech, but instead we provide you solutions. And I think that's a fantastic way of looking at it, and fantastic way of people being able to adapt it. And when Indraneel was talking about, hey, it's not that great yet, yeah, I can't really talk too much about it. But even after he said that, he caught me by surprise when he said, like, you know what, Will already has this capabilities, managers. I'm just waiting for people to ask me about it. So I think as the conclusion, in addition to a bunch of things that are required for virtual production in VR, which Suhas pointed out, like collaboration, security, and Chaitanya pointed about plug-and-play hardware for motion tracking. If these solutions exist and are there, I believe that there is, I think we are in a crux of being able to adapt or adopt virtual production and virtual reality and the solution, just stealing that word from Suhas right now, to create a whole holistic solution where these technologies can be used to expedite production and to just make Indian cinema a lot better. So with that, I'm just gonna conclude. Thank you so much, everyone, Chaitanya, Indraneel, and Suhas, and CII for organizing this panel. I hope it was informative to all of the folks who are attending this. I definitely found it a lot very enlightening. So thank you so much, and I will now leave it to Suhas and Technicolor and to give a presentation on Dell. And apologies because I earlier thought there was not going to be a presentation, but I guess there's. Concluded.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, team. Thanks, Arvind.
Thank you, Mr. Arvind.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, CII. Thanks, Arvind.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Arvind Neelakantan. Now we have a very special presentation with from Mr. Suhas Pingat, powered by Dell. Please. Over to you, Mr. Pingat.
Suhas, is that my cue?
Yeah, it's your cue. I would rather expect, I would like Fani to go ahead and do this, and then I'll cover the Dell set. Over to you, Fani.
All right, thank you, Suhas. So let me just quickly share my screen. Suhas, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, it is visible. You can go ahead with your presentation.
All right. Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. Myself, I'm Fani Madhav. I'm the HOD for CG software for MPC Film. And today I'm going to actually really give you a quick overview of Genesis, the Technicolor's virtual production platform. So MPC, so most of you know, it stands for a moving picture company, and it's actually part of Technicolor family. And the family includes MPC Film and Mr. X. So MPC Film is the visual effects company behind Jungle Book and the most talked The Lion King movie. And we have won an Oscar for Jungle Book some years ago. And this year we have actually won it for work contributions in the movie 1917. So coming to the main part, so Genesis is our our framework, which we have actually created for virtual production in MPC. So this is not just a single tool. So this is actually a complex system coming together to make virtual production a possibility. So we have actually created this on top of Unity, but actually we intend to replace the renderer, the real-time renderer moving forward. So you might have actually heard about virtual production. So there are actually several definitions about it. So so my take here is that so you might have actually you might have actually pictured several film productions, right? So the director, the cinematographer, the camera crew, the actors, all the worker, all working on a film set, actually, filming shot by shot. So these guys are actually, experts in their own space. So now imagine if these same crew has to actually, work on a shot which has a lot of computer generated imagery. So, for example, Lion King, where there's no physical set, because the whole of the movie is actually generated and created in a computer. So now the crew is kind of actually what do you say, out of their comfort zone. So a comfort zone. They're actually used to using their real world tools like the cameras, the dollies, the motion rigs, and the ability to change set, the sound, and the lighting, and all that. So they're actually experts in these using these real world tools. So this is where the virtual reality saves the day. Thanks to the immersive experience, the VR headsets are kind of provide. Now the director and the crew is actually transported into this virtual world where they can actually use this film gear, which is actually provided by our Genesis toolkit, like the ones which discussed before, the camera rigs and all that. So what they are actually used to and all that. So suddenly they're kind of actually at home using all these virtual tools which they're used to, and then actually trying to create this shot. So here you can actually see a screenshot of the director. If you actually see the head, that represents the director's position, and production designer and cinematographer actually working together on a camera rig, on a virtual camera rig, trying to establish a shot. So there's a virtual camera there and all that. So I haven't actually included the videos and all that, considering I have a 10-minute slot. So yeah, going forward. So features of virtual production here. Scouting is a big feature for filmmakers, so they can actually explore the set and understand the volume, the scale. They can move about in this virtual world and try to establish and find the best angle for the shot they're actually trying to create. And at the same time, they can actually do the set dressing as well. So which is actually moving the set elements in the virtual world to actually conform to the requirements of the shot and actually make it much better. And and they also have this ability to actually film actors who actually represents a CG character in a shot through motion capture capabilities, so they can actually do the take in the real time using virtual cameras and all that. And talking about virtual cameras, yes, again the camera crew is again given the same tools which they're actually used to, the dollies, the tray, everything. In fact, actually the Genesis kit actually provides camera lenses which matches the real world cameras, so the director actually can do the camera tricks of actually playing with the focus points or depth of fields and you name it. So all these are actually there, making them feel right at home. And the whole virtual production, the process of making a shot much better. We hear about retakes and all that, right? So this process actually in virtual production is much more easier and smoother compared to the real world stuff, where we can actually record and reuse some of this things which are actually approved, like for example the camera position and all that. So the process of making it more and more better is much more easier when it comes to virtual production. And LED walls, so the LED walls are kind of making a blue and green screen obsolete. So this is something new, and we are actually adapting to this. So there's a lot of talk about LED walls going on and all that. So so yeah, I mean, we are kind of adapting to this technology as well. So and again, on virtual production, so the best part is so everything is kind of actually happening in the digital space, and where we can actually record all this data. So we have actually used Unity as a real-time to actually have the crew work in this virtual world and do their work, and at the same time actually have to capture the performances, capture what they have actually done in this particular shot, and then actually propagate it down to the VFX pipeline. So the challenging part here was to actually ensure that the data actually flows seamlessly from this the real-time renderer, which is Unity, and to our VisualFX pipeline, which includes several DCCs and all that. So we kind of actually did that using USD and various formats to have the data flowing seamlessly. And when it comes to technology, the technology has been evolving on both on the hardware and the software side of things. Right from the VR headsets and the game engines. The game engines right now actually come with off-the-shelf tools and support for the virtual production, and some of the tools which actually enable us to connect devices and then actually do and start plug and play kind of an environment. So I think right now is the time. I mean, in fact, the panel, the discussion which actually happened earlier, I mean, kind of says that yes, I mean, we are in the right time to actually grow along with this evolution of hardware and software and the virtual production to make to go ahead and make the whole virtual production magic happen. So it all started when started along with Jungle Book. Jungle Book production. We started doing a lot of VR. So it kind of actually, I mean, most of the features were born out of necessity, and from there on, the tool kind of evolved and added a lot more features and became into a more a stable Genesis system that we actually call today. So, but all the underlying hardware, starting from the VR headsets and the powerful workstations and the graphic cards, which were actually churning out frames with a lot of draw calls and all that, and the custom input controllers that we have actually developed for the camera crew and all that, who actually controls the camera and all that. All that actually made Genesis a success story. So talking about hardware again, so Dell has been one of our hardware partners, and I would like to hand it off to Suhas to talk about Dell products.
Hey, thanks, Pani. So if you can stop sharing your screen, I will then go ahead and share the presentation. Just give me a moment. I do have certain issues. Yes, I think now we should be good to go. Okay, so I hope the screen is visible. Thanks a lot, Pani, for this session. And what I'm going to do is next time, I know that I back every day, and it's like we would like to wind up. I will not take much of the time because talking about that session in 10 minutes is really. But what I do is I'll give you a brief as to what we're doing in the world of media entertainment and what is the and as well. So we kind of a lot of videos worldwide. Of course, in India, we do work with Technicolor as well. So we work with DLFX, and the simple thing that they wanted was to have workstations or equipment which basically works at the same speed as the artist thinks. Because what an artist imagines and has to easily come on the speed. So that part, that performance, that ability, of course, is available. That's for example of realists that has used their precision technology. Of course, this does not need much of an introduction. This is the movie which we actually worked with Sony Pictures. It's actually Spider-Man Homecoming, and many of you would have seen this movie. A lot of work has gone into that. There are roughly about 1,000 workstations that this customer uses, and specifically for this movie, it was fantastic collaborating with Sony Pictures. Recently, I think VR, as we know, may not be necessarily only for consumption. VR also plays a big role in terms of promotion or launches or PR exercises. And Dunkirk does use a lot of the stuff from us at Dell, and the content was VR enabled for doing a fantastic launch of the movie as well. So these are the few examples that I wanted to touch upon, but essentially what's happening is, I'll not get into too much of details here, but that's how things are changing, okay? If you look at it at the lower side, you've got 2K up to 8K, and then from passive, which was okay, which is animation effects. From there, we moved into HDR and maybe some kind of 5K. We're looking at visual and experience. We're looking at freedom of 6 degrees, interactive. We're looking at game engines coming in. What essentially happened was it became more immersive. Okay, so the consumption actually became more immersive. And what is now the change is, besides the fact that it is active, we're going to have a lot of artificial intelligence, interactive. We're going to have volumetric capture. We're obviously going to have a lot of experience, more dynamic as you move there, right? Specifically, I would like to have something which is known as a dynamic storyline. Visual, of course, is there. Audio is there. Haptic is something which you're going to have, which means a complete experience that is going to be absolutely intelligent. So that's how things are going to change, and we're going to see slowly and steadily some of the video formats that you see on the horizontal plane side. So we are right now at active immersive. To a certain extent, we're getting into intelligent stuff also. And as we move ahead in the next few years, we're going to see the way industry is changing drastically, because we're going to have a lot of these aspects coming in. Okay, so fundamentally what I wanted to talk about now is what we at Dell do. So we also, of course, we do collaborate a lot with the Red Hat Linux and the Ubuntu team worldwide, because a lot of the users within the media entertainment industry, also because of the kind of workflows that they have, do essentially work with Red Hat Linux or Ubuntu. So which means you get a secure, high performance, and fundamentally what happens here is you're looking at collaboration with these companies worldwide. We have an ecosystem in place, and that ecosystem essentially is about the independent software vendors. What happens essentially in Dell is that we work very, very closely with all these companies that you see on the screen, right from Adobe to Autodesk to Abbott, Foundry, and of course the hardware partners like Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, TeraDigi. We work jointly so that what happens is once you start using our workstations, and of course our storage, which gets tested and certified on all these softwares, all the versions, you will have hardware which is absolutely fine-tuned. And this is essentially happening because we work closely with them. Before a launch of a product, we get our products tested and certified. And what a customer essentially buys is a product which is a Dell Precision workstation that is certified to run any kind of applications. And more so, the hardware that we are actually talking about is one of the leading ones in the world. We talk about performance, productivity, and would not like you like to have workstations that will work at least 24 hours, if not 24/7, but 24 hours, 5 days a week probably. You need to have seriously good, solid performance, high on reliability workstations. And what are these? So this is one slide that I would like to dwell upon. We have an extensive range of workstations today, and that starts from the mobile form factor to towers and racks. I'll touch briefly on each of these form factors. Today, as we're seeing, and we at Dell are seeing something drastically changing in the Indian marketplace. Thanks to whatever has happened because of the pandemic, we all are seeing a higher level of adoption on the mobiles. And the power on the mobile workstation, mind you, is not what it was probably 6 years, 7 years back. It has changed drastically. It is now becoming the primary equipment of production. So which means anybody who's an artist or working on VFX, doing some modeling, some compositing, any kind of workflow that is typically there and present in media entertainment industry, animation, gaming, graphics, you will have the mobile workstation working as powerfully as it does. Now, when you want higher scalability in terms of processing speeds, in terms of cores, let's say there are certain workflows specifically in VR where you would like to use more than one graphic card, or in some cases, 3 graphic cards, combine them, look at highly scalable memory and storage capacities, then you can look at the Tower series, which is the 3000, 7000. And last but not least, our rack workstations, which has been traditionally there for a long period of time. We've been the only one in the industry to have the 2U rack workstations, which is dual processor capable, and the 1U rack workstation is single processor capable. So if there are customers and if there are studios here who would like to have a data center kind of experience, what you need to do is set this up into a rack in your data center and give the access of the workstation to the user, wherever the user is placed, either at home or some remote location through an endpoint device, which is perfectly secure. What we intend to do here is, and what we primarily do is not virtualization, that's a different story that we have, but we give 1:1 connectivity because the power of the entire workstation is delivered to one single user. And what happens here is, I'm sure you would have heard me about talking about security. This is a secure way working in the industry, because data does not live, does not get out of your data center. It remains in your data center, remains secure, and absolutely highly level of secure reasons. Because at the end of the day, what's happening is the access is done by the user only maybe via a thin client, or it could be a standard desktop or a notebook with no local storage that is needed. So this is the brief as far as our products are concerned. And I would suggest that if there are some audience here who would like to seriously consider, do look at the mobiles and the racks. And I will cover 2 important products here, which we recently launched. We do have the Precision 5550. This is our thinnest, lightest mobile workstation in the 15-inch form factor. This is the 3rd version of our 5000 series, which is there. We do have a current generation, which is known as a 5540. It's absolutely thin and light. It covers a lot of features. I will not get into technical specs. What I can actually show you is how it has changed from a generation standpoint. What you see on the left-hand side is our new 5550. Now, for people who are very much interested in graphics, what you see is simple. It is 4-sided infinity bezel, and this is the earlier version of the 15-inch. It is both the same. This 15-inch and the right side of the 15-inch. Look at the form factor reduction. What we've delivered is something fantastic. We've got 6% smaller chassis, and we're delivering 6% larger display, which means we are getting up to 240 added Y rows of pixel, 16:10, 921K total added pixels. It's fantastic. So people who are working in many of our industry segments, whether in animation or VFX or modeling, coloring, compositing, all those things and all those features which require absolutely great graphics, but supported with absolutely great viewing, this is a fantastic solution, and this seriously will give you the required level of performance and, of course, the best ever for the front of the screen experience. Now, if the 15-inch form factor is kind of limiting to you, yes, there are customers who really wanted this globally. What we've done is we've taken this one step ahead. We've also launched the thin and light 17-inch precision, that's the 5750. Now, why I call it thin and light is all traditional 17-inch mobile workstations have been very, very heavy. And the greatest advantage with the 5750 is this can be used for VR content development as well. And that is what we are delivering. So if you see, this is the 15-inch, and what we are seeing right now is a 5750. It has got a 10% larger chassis, but 26% larger display. And the form factor seriously is slightly more than our earlier 5540, which is 15-inch. So we've introduced these two new products, which is the Precision 5550 and the 5750, and specifically would like to address the needs of this industry, where you would like to have the best ever front of screen experience, good integrated audio features, absolutely great specifications in terms of specs and feeds, processing cores and graphics, and so on and so forth. But most importantly, across all our portfolio, what we deliver is something known as AI-based optimization. So any software that you intend to run, or any software tool that you intend to run on the Dell Precision Workstation, it will be optimized irrespective of any software that you use, because we have a tool known as Dell Optimizer for Precision that optimizes any software, balances the need in terms of graphics, in terms of core processing